And here's another one, and I know it's gonna piss off a lot of you people off, mainly the evangelical friends that I have. Even Calvary Chapel's founder, Chuck Smith, has made predictions in the past, and nowhere do I hear leaders within its ranks leaving the church of a false prophet. That's true. Calling him a false prophet. And I don't know if you remember, but according to the Old Testament, Moses required such prophets to be stoned to death. Obviously, it's against the law in the United States, but I do think Christians should be leaving Calvary Chapel, formally and practically. So, it's going to piss you guys off, but the man is a false prophet. He made a prediction in the past. You should leave. Anyway, now I get to Gary DeMar's article, finally. Mr. DeMar has shown in his article not only that the issue over Matthew 24 is simply not the point, it's relevant, but that it simply raises smoke screens to the reality that modern-day evangelicals are just as guilty as Harold Camping. Quote, Camping will be denounced as a charlatan and a kook, but little will change in the way prophecy is taught and publishing companies promote it. There's not going to be a difference. All these evangelicals could be criticizing Harold Camping as a false prophet all they want and call him a kook and a charlatan, but the fact is, they're going to continue in their ways. Tell me, how is that productive? It's not. It's not. Matthew 24, I want to touch on this real quick before I forget, before I get to my last point. Matthew 24, a lot of Christians keep pointing, saying that these signs will follow, these signs will follow. I'm not gonna quote the entire text because there are way too many verses, but I will only quote one, because I think this actually deals with the issue. And that's verse 32. He talks about the parable of the tree, and there's a lot of adjectives used, like near and soon, such as the article from Greg that I showed about Greg Laurie and how he quoted. He says it will happen soon. There's near. All these adjectives about nearness and soonness. But the fact is, whenever these adjectives were used, they were used in light of the language that Jesus used about this generation. So, just to make a little correction, whenever we look at Matthew 24, we're not supposed to be reading into it. We're supposed to interpret it in light of its how it's represented in that text. And Jesus constantly, after he named off all these things that are going to happen, he says, this generation. It happened within that generation. So stop going to the newspapers, evangelicals. And those of you who are honest evangelicals and saying that we are in the last days, they've been in the last days since the 1st century. Okay? So, stop. Hold on. Okay. Finally, last point. Just gonna correct BBF Ohio, his channel on YouTube. He makes many statements, the Pastor Miller, in which he lumps all amillennialists into one hodgepodge of people and simply throws them under the bus. He says that the reason why they're wrong is because of his view of Israel, or what he calls replacement theology. Huge mistake. We don't hold to replacement theology, we hold to covenant theology. We don't replace Israel. Israel left the root. They've been cut off. Now they're welcome to come back in. I'm referring to Romans, by the way. They're welcome to come back in, but they cannot be saved outside of Christ. In other words, if they want to be in, we're not replacing them. They left, so we're not replacing Israel. We are Israel. So if they want to come back, they can. We're not replacing them. They left. So it's a big mistake. Covenant theology and replacement theology, two totally different ideas. Anyway, and by doing this, he's committed a straw man argument, essentially. So he builds up all these amillennialists amillennials into this one camp. I mean, he says they're all the same, but noted there are some amillennialists that don't agree even within each other. So how's he gonna put all these guys together and say these guys are all wrong because of replacement theology? And he still doesn't even know what that even teaches anyway. It's just a straw man. It's a bad argument. It's really, really bad. And then after hearing the rest of the video, I think that the info provider was a waste of my time. These guys are King James onlyists. Basically, all they do is they only read the King James text and say that the text of the Bible can only be preserved within the King James Bible. And the reason why Harold Camping was wrong was because he tried to correct the King James version of the Bible. And some of these quotes by Camping I actually agree with. He says you're not going to have a perfect translation, and it's true. I mean, you're not. So anyway, I tended to agree with Camping in that area as far as translations go. I mean, his error wasn't that there's too much diversity in the text of the original copies of the text. It's the fact that there is diversity that we can be sure of what was most likely said in the originals. So, and I just found that this group was a big mistake because they were more concerned with correcting Camping on the whole King James Version issue than his actual theology, which I think is an error. And so I'm not here riding on a horse trying to save Camping's theology or to save Camping. I think he's wrong. I think he's a false prophet, but I also think Chuck Smith is a false prophet. So there you have it. Anyway, although Camping in his theology is really bad and in desperate need of correction, I do. The hysteria modern day Christians show shows that their theology is not so far from Camping's. I mean, Christians haven't made predictions, but their theology is just as bad. DeMar has done a great service and a great job at showing this error, and this is an error that I think Christians ought to look into if they truly care about their doctrine. Anyway, it's just my 2 cents, guys. If you guys agree, disagree, go ahead and leave a comment, like, dislike. You guys can reach me at my email. I will post it at the end of the video. But just let me know what you guys think. I would really like to hear some feedback. All right.